We have a brief video from the namesake of our school, Mr. Charley Steiner, who unfortunately could not be with us this year. So we want to go ahead and play this video.
Thank you, Josh. Hi, everybody, and welcome to what is, I guess, our 10th year now with the Steiner Symposium, which is really one of the thrills of my career. I came out to Bradley in '67, always wanted to be a baseball announcer, always wanted to be a Dodger announcer. Lo and behold, it happened. What I did not expect was a Steiner school, a Steiner symposium, and all the trappings that go with it. And so I am flattered that you're here. I'm honored that you're here, and it is a joy for me. I want to thank a couple of folks right at the top. First, Josh Dickhouse, who's been with me almost every step of the way. He is the guy, along with Paul Gullifor, who has kept the Steiner School going, the symposium going, and I have thanked them any number of times on the phone and in person, and now I want to do that in front of everybody. And especially to Paul Gullifor. You say goodbye, I say hello. Paul has been with the school almost 40 years, and he has become a very good, honored friend of mine, a decent human being who is calling it a day. This is going to be the last symposium for Paul, and then he goes on with the rest of his grown-up life, whatever that's going to look like and however that's going to work out. But he has been great. So too has been Josh. So I thank them both. I thank you all for being here. Now, today we have four major events that we will be talking about. And we'll start at the very beginning, gambling. It was unfathomable, just 10 years ago, sports, gambling, broadcasting, how that all came together as one. And we're still trying to figure out what makes it work. One of the fellows that Paul Gullifor's crew will be talking about in the sports betting is an old dear friend of mine, Malcolm Moran. Malcolm and I were young reporters in New York in the late 60s, early 70s. And now here he is, a big hot shot at the University of Indiana, and comes out to visit with us every year. And Malcolm, I can't thank you enough. So sports gambling and how that has all grown and manifested itself over the years is still a work in progress. Personally, I have mixed feelings about it, as I'm sure all of you do as well. Another area that we're going to talk about will be, and this is a little self-falutin, but I'll take it anyway. We've had an enormous amount of success of those students who have come through Bradley and the symposium and sports media. So we're going to talk about that some today. AI. When I was at Bradley, AI was merely two letters in the alphabet. Now it's a whole different deal that, admittedly, at my ripe old age, I don't fully understand, but okay, we will deal with it. And then finally, again, something that was unfathomable years ago, sports and globalization. There are so many sports now in so many facets of the universe, much less in our country. Everything is different now. And how, for instance, the NBA and the going for the championship, it's a worldwide experience, as the NFL has become. So all of this is so much bigger, coming from literally nothing. When I was there were this many, two chairs and this many microphones, and that was sports communication at the time. Anyway, it's come a long way. I'm prattling on entirely too long and too much. So I will let you guys figure it out among yourselves. And again, to Paul, you say goodbye, we say hello and thank you. And to Josh, it's all yours. Take it away.
So we are about to start our 9 a.m. panel. We thank Charlie for his video message. Again, he's sorry he could not be here. The last thing I want to do before we get started, Dr. Gullifor is going to moderate this first panel. If you don't know, the students that go here now, for those perspectives, this is as fine a sports communication program as you're going to find in this country. And there's one person more than any other we really need to thank for that. Dr. Paul Gullifor helped write the curriculum, oversaw its beginning, were the chair when we turned into the Steiner School, okay? You and I have been planning these symposiums now for 10 years. Charlie's right, goes back 10 years. We missed 2 years with COVID. That's why it's the 8th. And I can say it won't be the same without you. And we thank you for everything you've done, so please stand and be recognized. And at that, we will start the 9 a.m. panel on sports and betting, and turn it over to Dr. Gullifor. There's your mic. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh, for your kind words. For me, it's personally gratifying that as I make my exit, that the SportsCom program is in the best possible hands, and Josh will do an excellent job with that. So thank you again for that. Welcome everybody to the first panel in the 2025 Steiner Symposium. This panel devoted to sports betting and wagering, and we have some great guests. Let me introduce our guests for you. Briefly, there's a more detailed biography in the program, so I urge you to consult the program for more information on each of these. Starting at the far end, your far left, that's Igli Velcani. Igli earned a bachelor's degree in marketing from Northern Illinois University and a law degree from the University of Illinois Chicago. He worked for 2 years in the University of Illinois Chicago Athletics Compliance Office before joining the Bradley University Athletic Department, where he has served as the Director of Compliance for the past 16 months. In his current role, he navigates the world of NCAA rules compliance, including sports wagering. You have a difficult job, Igli. Next to Igli is Tim Van Straten. Tim Van Straten is one of ours, graduated from Bradley University in 2015 with a bachelor's degree in sports communication and a minor in marketing. Upon graduation, Tim joined 101.1 ESPN Peoria, where he quickly rose through the ranks to become the station's program director and afternoon co-host. More recently, Tim transitioned into the sports betting industry and recently served as an affiliate writer for Sports Radar. His work, ranging from betting and analysis to advertorial content, has been featured in major publications such as Newsweek, Cleveland.com, Pro Football Focus, and Sports Betting Dime. Next to Tim is Adam Delevitt. Adam Delevitt graduated from Bradley in 1998. After graduation, Adam was hired by ESPN 1000 in Chicago, where he would remain for the next 21 years in various roles, including program director. In radio, that is a lifetime, Adam.
It really is.
Congratulations. Currently, he is director of broadcast and streaming media at Rush Street Interactive, where he produces and distributes marketing and media advertising content for Bet Rivers and associated brands. And then our dear friend who we have adopted as one of our own in the Department of Communication here, Malcolm Moran, has directed sports journalism programs for nearly 2 decades after a career as an award-winning reporter and columnist at the New York Times, USA Today, and other publications. He is the director of the Sports Capital Journalism Program at Indiana University in Indianapolis and joined the faculty at IUPUI in January 2013. Malcolm has covered more than 40 postseason college football games with national championship stakes. He's covered 44 NCAA Final Fours, 11 Super Bowls, 16 World Series, and 5 Olympic Games. I don't know whether to be impressed or jealous of your career. He is executive director of the United States Basketball Writers Association and a member of the organization's Hall of Fame. In 2007, Malcolm received the Kurt Gowdy Print Media Award from the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame for lifetime coverage of basketball. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our 4 panelists. The format for this, I'd kind of like to keep it a little informal. I have some questions in front of me to ask, but this is really about you. So I'd rather have your questions posed to the panelists. So at any time, I'll get us started, but at any time that you have a question, please raise your hand and I will give you the floor. There are things that might come up where it's going to pique your interest and generate a question. You may want to follow up to something somebody has said. So you should have that opportunity. So just raise your hand and we'll make sure your question gets addressed. Okay? So panelists, let's start out with some historical context here, which Charlie just alluded to in his presentation a second ago. It used to be that gambling and sports was incompatible with each other, that this was going to affect the purity of the game. It was going to ruin the integrity of sport. Sports betting would be considered scandalous, and heavy fines and other types of punishments were levied against people who participated in sports gambling. It was just 15 years ago that the NFL issued a statement that it was opposed to sports gambling. So fast forward to the present. And the NFL now has official partnerships with Caesars Entertainment, DraftKings, and FanDuel. Major League Baseball and the NBA has partnerships with DraftKings and FanDuel. So my question for the panelists, to no one in particular, anybody who wants to jump in, what changed?
Stumped them already. Malcolm.
The Supreme Court, for one thing, I mean, that was the moment that opened doors, and all of a sudden, everything became not just legal, but mainstream, which is, to me, the biggest surprise, how everything just changed almost overnight. I mean, I live in Indiana, not far away, and I thought, since Indiana in many ways is a fairly conservative place, that would be one of the last places to come online. I mean, I could not have been more wrong. I mean, there was a place downtown that has been open for a number of years where you could go bet on the horses, and they would have TVs all over the place with different horse racing competitions, and you could bet on them. Well, all of a sudden, overnight, you could bet on the NFL, and there was a line down the block one Sunday morning. I mean, that's how fast it happened.
Yeah, I think people have always been gambling on sports, just not legally, until, like Malcolm said, in 2018 when PASPA passed, which gave the states the right to open it up. And now that there's more than 25 states that are legal, every state is different, has their own rules and regulations. But it did happen pretty much overnight. You think about 2018, now we're here in 2025, which is amazing, and the states just keep increasing as we go here.
Yeah, we're close to, I think in total, close to 40 states that have some variation of legalization, about 30 that have mobile sports betting. And it's going to continue to increase. I mean, from just 2018 to 2021, the bulk of those launches happened. It's slowing down a little bit now, but I mean, we should realistically expect where all 50 states, well, maybe not 50, you have like Utah, that's not going to happen. But the overwhelming majority are going to have it in some capacity, and it's just amazing to see. And it's not a, it doesn't really matter if it's really like a more conservative state or a liberal state. I mean, like politically, like both sides pretty much feel the same about betting. So whether it's Texas or California, it's all going to ultimately end up being legal in some capacity. I think that's ultimately where we're headed.
Yeah, and to just piggyback off those, another thing is revenue, money, and growth. Start with the money. The NFL makes a lot of money with these partnerships with these sports books and these betting companies. And then growth. The NFL, a lot of the games at the end of the season, a lot of the teams are out of contention. So these are meaningless games. So I'm a New York Giants fan. So for the last couple years, anything past week 12 has been a lot of meaningless games for us. But for a lot of people, this gives them an investment in these games. So people watch these games because they have money on these games. So growth and money is another reason why the NFL, the NBA, the MLB are starting a partnership with all these sports books.
There's medication for that, by the way, being a Giants fan.
No, I need it. I need it, yeah.
Yeah, I need it too. I've been prescribed that one.
Nice shot, Malcolm. You may have answered what is in it for the partnerships? What's in it for the NBA? What's in it for Major League Baseball? Are they no longer concerned about the integrity of the sport? Is it just all about money? Is that what this is, fundamentally?
Isn't that kind of what it's always has been, though? About just money and just trying to market your product. And, as he was saying, like, it's about making each and every game, even if it's two teams that you would look on the surface and say, this is totally irrelevant. Why would I watch the Charlotte Hornets and the Spurs right now playing this game in March? They're totally out of it. It doesn't matter. Oh, wait, it does matter, though, because there's thousands of people that have put all of this money on the game. The league likes that. The league likes knowing that people are locked in and engaged, and however they can get that engagement, like, they'll take it. So I think that's what they're looking at, in addition to just money.
Yeah, there's no doubt ratings are down in the NBA, not in the NFL, but in Major League Baseball ratings have been down, and it definitely helps with the audience as well as the revenue. So.
One of the points that advocates had been making for a long time in defense of some kind of gambling initiative was regulation and data. Well, what the data has shown us really quickly, could anybody guess what are some of the most bet on, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but the most action, there's the hint, in all of the college football season? What games do you think would attract some of the most gambling activity?
The national football game.
I'm sorry?
The national game.
Like the
No.
championship.
Championship, you mean?
I mean, obviously it's substantial, but on close to that level,
Games from the top 10 schools.
no.
FCS schools.
Some of the most bet on games, I'm sorry?
Like rival schools.
Can be, but it doesn't matter if it's a rival. It doesn't matter if they're any good. The Mid-American Conference games on TV and weeknights in November, the Maction games, have generated some of now. And some of these games, and I'm not putting down the MAC. I grew up near a MAC town, or lived near a MAC town for a number of years. There might be 5,000 people in the stands because it's 30 degrees in the middle of November in Akron or Toledo or wherever, but it's on TV. And like, why was Monday Night Football so popular right from the start? It was because of gambling. It was because if somebody had a bad weekend, well, the Packers are going to come through for me on Monday night, and so I'm going to make it back. Just the other day, Brent Musburger was recognized. He's going to receive an award from the NFL Hall of Fame. His signature, what is Brent's signature line when he comes on? This might have been before your time for some of you. You know where I'm going?
I know it, but
He would say, the first thing he would say at the beginning of a broadcast is, "You are looking live." Well, I heard him speak to a bunch of students once. He said, well, you know where that came from, right? Where "you are looking live" came from was that way, way back when the NFL would start its pregame show, there's no Weather Channel. There's no access to weather information. Let's say the Los Angeles Rams are playing the Vikings outdoors in Minnesota in late November. You see a live shot of Bloomington, Minnesota, and you can tell, is the temperature in the lower 50s and people are wearing light jackets? That means the Rams can throw the ball today. You call your bookie and get down your bet. Or if there's sideways snow, I mean, all of that was like this secret code. So, I mean, this is something that's been going on forever.
To follow up on that, how do you explain the popularity of the MAC? I would have guessed what the students said. I would have said national championship, the playoffs. What is What is the
I would
appeal?
say one, it's football, and two, like Malcolm said, it's on TV. And usually, excuse me, they're on Tuesdays or Thursday
Correct.
nights, odd nights, where other sports maybe aren't happening.
Correct.
Well, speaking.
So while the league might be really happy about these partnerships with DraftKings and FanDuels, what does that mean for the individual franchises? Are they getting a cut of this based off of how many bets? Is that contentious?
Well, no, so teams in markets where it's legal and regulated, they're allowed to do their own local deals on top of the national league deal that's already happening. So that's why you could see different ads for BetMGM, Caesars, FanDuel, DraftKings in different stadiums in different markets everywhere. So there's the option for the local team to do their own deals as well.
And some of the teams are even going above and beyond and building their own sports books at their stadium, like at Wrigley
Yeah.
Field.
Correct.
If you guys have been there in the last couple of years, there's a DraftKings sports book that's attached to Wrigley Field.
How is that ethical?
The United Center in Chicago has a FanDuel lounger zone. So I think most stadiums are going to that. Maybe half of them have that already. So
For them, it's a revenue stream. That's how they look at it. They look at it, it's bringing money to the team. It can help us just help improve the team, help improve the facilities and things like that.
I would say it's also a branding thing.
Correct.
So it's, 18,000 people walk by and see the FanDuel zone and whatnot. So absolutely.
What does these franchises keep integrity? Do they teach classes or anything about?
It's a great question. It's a great question. As far as I know, I don't believe the franchise or teams, maybe there's classes or lessons or maybe with their own agents or teams. I'm not sure if that's happening or not.
I mean, I know the leagues have their own
Yeah.
sort of measures in place to tell the players, like, no betting on your sport, your team, and I don't know if they go beyond that with additional measures. You'd think that would sort of, people would get the message, but, we've seen a few cases in the last few years where that's not the case.
So what I know is the MLB, the only reason I know this is because the person who works with educational efforts for sports betting in the MLB came and spoke to us for the Missouri Valley Conference, to all the compliance people. So the MLB has somebody that goes from team to team and tries to educate the different stakeholders, the athletes, the coaches, the managers, the front office people. So his job was specifically to go to team and try to educate them on the sports betting and things like that.
Does that happen at the college level as well?
Yes, at the college level, it's one of my jobs to provide as much educational efforts to our student athletes, our administrators, and our coaches. The NCAA does a really, really good job providing us compliance officers a toolkit or educational documents. And then a lot of times it's just reminders during big betting periods, March Madness, Super Bowl, send out emails, send out reminders to coaches, staff, student athletes. Hey, don't gamble. It's not worth it. There's a lot of different penalties that you would be penalized if you do.
But the really volatile piece of all this, and this is why the point you raised is so important, I mean, the whole consumer protection piece of it I think is lagging behind because it's so new. I mean, companies and organizations see revenue stream, growth, and so they chase it. But to me, college campuses have a very combustible mix of high-level interest, alcohol, underage participants, bad judgment. I mean, what could go wrong? And so, I mean, that's why this is a really important topic, because it could impact anybody in this room if you make a bad judgment. And I mean, the stakes are really high because you can sit and you can do it on these things.
Is that why I can't vote on U of I games and Bradley games?
Your states have different rules and regulations. Illinois, for instance, in most states, you're not allowed to bet on the in-state college if you're in that state. Some states are different, but not in Illinois. What?
But
So that would like cross the state line and then place a bet on.
Like if you went to Indiana, then you could bet on a Bradley game,
Okay.
and then you could come back to Illinois, and like your bet is still locked in, you'd still get paid out, but in terms of placing the wager, yeah, which that opens up a whole other can of worms.
There are a lot of worms,
Yeah.
you may have noticed.
A lot of cans.
Yeah.
Do you guys think journalists should be allowed to bet, or do you think it's a conflict of interest?
That, I've been waiting for somebody to bring that up.
question.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Once you put that credential around your neck and you're representing an organization and you're serving your readers, the idea that you could profit based on the information you have, absolutely not. And I think it should be part of every sports journalism organization code of ethics. Not that they can't bet, but you cannot bet on an event that you are covering for your organization. And the answer, when I've brought that up, the answer is, well, what about horse racing? I mean, there's been legalized horse racing betting in press boxes. I mean, I was so naive. The only time I went to the Belmont, I didn't know that there was a betting window in the press box for convenience sake. I mean, I had no idea. Well, and the answer I got was, well, so what about betting on horse racing? That's okay. And my answer was, the horses don't talk to the Washington Post. Like, you're not getting information that you can benefit from. I mean, I think back to, there was an NCAA championship game, it was 30 years ago, when UCLA was playing against Arkansas. And the whole build-up for the game was Tyus Edney, who was the UCLA point guard, made them go. He either had a hand or a wrist injury. And so he's going to warm up and see how it goes. Well, if you're sitting right next to the floor, you could be sitting 3 feet from a UCLA assistant coach who's watching the same thing you're watching, and you could just kind of get his attention and say, hey Steve, look, what do you think about Ty? And if Steve goes, then you can get out your phone. I mean, in the current structure, you can get out your phone and get down your bet. How can that be considered ethical?
Yeah.
I was just going to continue on that for a second. About 2.5 years ago, ESPN launched its own sportsbook, partnered with Penn Entertainment. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. It's called ESPN Bet. To this day, I still marvel at when you can open up the ESPN Bet app and you see journalists, like we could put that lightly, right? You see Stephen A. Smith has his own branded parlay, right, that you could bet right there on the app. Mike Greenberg was the host of Mike and Mike for 25 years. He's right there front and center on the app. So it's all of these ESPN personalities who, like ESPN, once upon a time, was a news organization. Like they had journalistic integrity. Today, they have personalities who have their own branded boosts, who have their own parlays that you could bet on the app. Like that to me is one of the most amazing developments of this sports betting, I don't know, craze, whatever you want to call it. But to what you were talking about, do you think that it extends to someone like them? Because like obviously a credentialed journalist in a press box shouldn't be placing bets, right? It's for like teams they cover, whatever. For personalities, TV personalities, you know, inside the NBA, you see Charles Barkley does his pregame, like here's who I recommend my pregame 3-leg parlay. Is that something that we're okay with generally? Like, I don't know. It's still.
What do you think? When Charles says that something is a guarantee, right?
Yeah.
I mean, is he just kind of a cartoon character, or does that say, okay, I'm going to bet the other way?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like when Lee Corso puts on the hat.
Fade 'em.
Like I used to teach at Penn State. Yeah. If Lee put on the Nittany Lion head, that's when I'd start getting worried, because if he picked Penn State, they may have a problem. So I don't know. I mean, how do you view that?
Not really anything, but what were some of the first states to ratify the legalization of gambling, sports gambling?
I think New Jersey was first. Philadelphia followed after that. I don't know exactly the order.
Indiana was among the first.
Indiana was the first
Really
5 or 6,
surprised
yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, Illinois.
Illinois was pretty early
Yeah.
to it too. It's like 2019 for Illinois, so.
If I could just remark on what you were talking about, I mean, it's really if you consider like Mike Greenberg, Molly, Stephen A. journalist, yeah, they're not in the locker room, maybe the credentialed, but they have contacts and sources
Right.
who they could call.
Right.
So I see what you're saying. I was at ESPN for many years and tried to push sports betting content before they wanted to, because Disney owns ESPN. They pushed back, but then the floodgates opened and Penn came in, and I also find it very odd that you're seeing not just them, but other people in media who are trying to give you picks online, social media. There's like all these people, and they're not experts at all. They're just giving you their opinion, and it's pretty dangerous if you ask me. If you're gonna follow them or not follow them, if you're gonna follow what they're saying and their picks. So.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and I'm glad you did. I kind of like to follow up on another journalistic issue, and that has to do with what is being reported on. We know, for example, that Men's March Madness had $3.1 billion wagered recently. We also know from the American Psychological Association that 1% of Americans now have the clinical definition of a gambling addiction. And 1% may not sound like much, and this ties into your ethical question that you posed a minute ago, but 1% is about 250,000 people. 1 in 6 will attempt suicide. We know that gambling ruins careers. We know that it breaks up families. I mean, the evidence is there. But I had to dig for these numbers. I had to do some research. This seems to me to be important information. It's very sobering, but it's something that ought to be brought to light. But I don't see a lot of reporting on this side of gambling. I see a lot of odds, point spreads, recommendations for you should bet, but I don't see much reporting on the societal issues that have crept into this. For you journalists on the panel, would you agree? And if so, why or why not? Where's the reporting?
Well, one element in this is that Outside the Lines has gone away, which was the ESPN show that did wonderful work for a lot of years examining issues such as this. I mean, within the leadership of an organization, I mean, it's easy to spot the stress if you've got an organization that realizes that gambling-related content is a way to grow revenue. Do we have stories raising red flags about taking part in that? And I don't know how those conversations go. But I know that, I mean, well, let me back up a second. When the Broncos were going to be in the Super Bowl, this is when I was in my previous life as a reporter. I was in Denver doing stuff looking ahead to the Super Bowl. And I don't know what made me think about this, but when the Broncos are really good, Denver shrinks from a major city into a small town. And everybody's on board with the Broncos. And it's a shade of orange that is hard to miss. So everywhere you look, there's Broncos stuff. And I just started thinking one day, like, how would this affect somebody that realizes that he or she has a gambling issue? Because everywhere, like the Super Bowl is dominating conversation. So I called the local office of Gamblers Anonymous and introduced myself. And I said, I don't know a lot about what you do, but I do respect the whole notion of anonymity. Within that context, is there somebody you could recommend who I could talk to about what it's like to be here when everybody's going crazy about the Broncos and the Super Bowl generates all this gambling? And I eventually had lunch with somebody who described it as very similar to what somebody with an alcohol issue is going through on New Year's Eve, where you have to be aware of your surroundings and their impact. If you go to a Super Bowl party, you're inviting trouble, because with proposition wagering, which is a whole separate issue as it applies to college athletes, I mean, you're just asking for trouble. And what he said, long story short, was if you can make it through, it will make you stronger. But there are definitely challenges to deal with.
So going to your question about why we're not seeing more coverage of the negative aspects of gambling, I think of it as a lot of these legacy media companies, I'm talking a lot of like newspapers, it's almost like they put themselves in a self-induced conflict of interest. And what I mean by that is the newspaper industry and a lot of print journalism, just online journalism in general, it's not doing great. Things could be better. They realized a few years ago that they need to bring in revenue. One way to do that is through affiliate marketing, partnering with sports books. This was something that I was doing years ago, right? Where these media companies will allow sports books to come in, produce content, so like Newsweek, for example, I used to write for Newsweek, and Newsweek would have affiliate content from DraftKings, from FanDuel, from all of these sports books. That would be sports betting content, and they would have all the disclaimers at the end, if you have a problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, all the stuff at the end. But ultimately, they were pushing stuff where if you use Newsweek's code, sign up, you're a customer, Newsweek gets a cut of that. And a lot of these companies are using that revenue boost to stay in business. So it doesn't make. This is the ethical question, right? So they don't want to put out all of this content about how gambling is so bad for you, where at the same time, if you use the promo code Newsweek 1000, you will get a $1,000 risk-free bet if you sign up for whatever sports book that they're pushing. That makes sense? So like that's kind of the unfortunate part of this whole situation.
There was a chilling story that the website The Athletic had maybe about 6 weeks ago about an individual that wound up taking on more than $100,000 worth of debt, and it threatened his marriage and really created a real life nightmare. And it was meticulously done to describe step by step how he fell into this giant hole. But it's weird to think that not all that long ago there was this huge debate over whether newspapers should publish betting lines on college events. Yeah. And I worked for two of the last places to do it, Newsday on Long Island and the New York Times. And so there was a time when Bob Knight, who the longtime Indiana basketball coach, part of his shtick was that he felt like if newspapers are going to publish betting lines on college games, they might as well they might as well include in the next column the names of every prostitute in town and the specific services rendered in alphabetical order. And that was part of his shtick. He said it at the Olympic trials. He said it a number of different places. Well, now fast forward to when he's in between jobs. He had been fired at IU. He had not yet taken the job at Texas Tech. And I get this email one day from this public relations firm that's promoting this contest where if you can guess the result of all 67 NCAA tournament games, you win $1 million. And the guy promoting it is Bob Knight. And he's going to be on this conference call. So, I wait my turn and I ask my question. And to me, and this is not a criticism, he was one of the most, what's the right word? He was one of the strongest advocates raising the question of what the dark side of gambling had done to college basketball, which was almost destroy it in the 1950s when they had the point shaving scandal. So I asked the question, do you consider this a form of gambling? Crickets. And the handler said, well, you have to understand, this isn't really gambling because nobody is putting money toward it. It's just a contest. But it was going right up to that line. And it's kind of like the gambling equivalent of marijuana, kind of like the gateway experience. But now all that has become mainstream. Yeah. And there's going to be a Final Four in Vegas. Come on, you can't make this stuff up.
Was it like 20 years ago where the NFL didn't want to run a Las Vegas tourism ad for the Super Bowl? I think Las Vegas wanted to do an ad like a Viva Las Vegas ad during the Super Bowl. NFL was like, no way, and then here we are. There's Super Bowls there. There's professional franchises there, just like that.
Good question.
Do you guys think that sports gambling is good for sports?
In what way?
Like, do you think it's good for like?
For fans? For athletes? For who?
For like the athletes.
Well, for athletes, I would probably say no. Now, athletes have always heard from fans, this well before people were betting on sports, they would always hear whenever they've had a bad game, right? They would hear it be like, oh, you bum, you cost me, blah, blah, blah. But now they're hearing it even more so because it's like, oh, you cost me the last leg of my parlay because you didn't hit the over on your rebounds.
Correct.
Like stupid stuff like that. So no, I don't see how this is beneficial for athletes. Now, on the other side, obviously the sports betting becomes profitable for the leagues, then becomes profitable for the teams. There's more eyeballs, especially like the NFL, for instance. There's more action, there's more interest in the NFL, and that ultimately does work out for the players. But I think on a personal level, it probably does more harm than good. Is what I would say.
I think it's safe to say that it has intensified the abuse that college students are taking. It didn't invent it. I remember doing stories decades ago where, a freshman hits a goal post in a field goal attempt and his team loses the game and he's getting death threats on his dorm room phone. So, it didn't invent that, but it has made it much more high profile.
Malcolm, your Bobby Knight story reminds me of Lou Holtz when he was at Notre Dame. Hated gambling. He said he hopes Notre Dame wins every single game it plays, and everybody that bet on them to lose. So, while we're in the college realm for just a second, Igli. NCAA is most restrictive in this by forbidding athletes, sports staff, and administrators from wagering. But we also know the most vulnerable group for this tends to be males, 18 to 24. So how difficult is this to enforce at the institutional level? Because we still hear stories from Fresno State, University of Iowa, Notre Dame's men's swim team. It still occurs. So to what extent can you enforce it, and how challenging is it to enforce it?
So the enforcement part is very difficult. Me, as a compliance officer, I'm not with the student athletes 24/7. I'm not with the administrators 24/7. I'm not with the coaches 24/7. I don't know what they're doing when I'm not with them. So they could be participating in sports gambling. At the institutional level, I think what is extremely important is the educational part. The educating the stakeholders about sports gambling, the punishments, the penalties, and then giving them stories of real life experiences. Like you talked about the Fresno State one. I read one about a month ago. Mississippi State's male practice player got caught gambling. And while the NCAA didn't punish him that much, he still got punished. So at this level, what's extremely important is the educational part. Educating everybody, reminding everybody, if you're a student athlete, if you're a coach, if you're an administrator who works in the athletic department, don't participate in sports gambling. If you want to do it, you can go in a different career, but while you're in this world, don't participate in it. And like you said, the NCAA is very restrictive on this. The NCAA of all the leagues is probably the most restrictive. They do not work with sports books. They don't have sponsorships with any of these entities, and they also make it that coaches, student athletes cannot earn endorsement deals for sports books.
I ask you to kind of project into the future a little bit, Igli. We live in an age of student athlete empowerment, so we also thought there was a time when athletes wouldn't be able to transfer without having to sit out a year, and there was a time when they weren't receiving NIL money. Is this another one of those things that's likely to change? Because if you're 21 and you're a student athlete, how long do you see this restriction taking?
I think that's a good question. I think there's always a chance with student athletes trying to challenge NCAA rules in court. But I think this one is a little different than the NIL and the transfer portal. Transfer portal was a restriction on movement. NIL was a restriction on earning money. Sports betting is a restriction on an activity that a student or somebody is doing. So I think the NCAA is not, in the foreseeable future, will change its rules where it allows student athletes to bet. They're relaxing some of the penalties. When they first came out with the penalties, it was very much, if you bet, you would get severely punished. And then they started tiering them. If you bet on your own team, you're banned from competing at an NCAA school. If you bet on a team that's not yours, but it's in your school, right? So if you're on a men's basketball team, but you bet for the women's basketball team, you get suspended or you lose your eligibility and you have to get reinstated. If you bet on a different school or in the professional world, those punishments are less severe now when they were not. So the NCAA is kind of relaxing some of the punishments, but when it comes to a prohibition on sports gambling, I don't think it will change. I think the NCAA is going to keep it, especially because they themselves do not participate in these endorsement deals with these sports books like the other leagues have.
Are college athletes allowed to bet at all?
No, not on any NCAA-sponsored sport. So think of it the professional level or the amateur level. Men's basketball, for example, they can't bet on NBA games nor college basketball games.
So could Shador Sanders bet that Travis Hunter is going to be the number 3 pick?
No.
Okay.
No, they cannot bet on any of those.
Okay.
Those are very restrictive. And then also the NFL has similar rules where you cannot be betting on NFL events, whether it's the draft, the combine, any of these either.
Bouncing off of that, with college athletes now having to get paid in the near future, do you think universities are going to have more of an influence in sports betting, and do you think they're going to get involved in order to bring in that revenue in order to pay their students?
That's a really good question. University of Colorado, a couple years ago, and this was a big story at that time, signed an endorsement deal with one of the sports books. I forget which one it was. It might have been Points. There's a sports book in Colorado that's based in Colorado, but I forgot what it was. They canceled that deal because they got a lot of bad PR, and there was a lot of pushback from the NCAA and the public as a whole, where student athletes are not allowed to enter these endorsement deals with these sports books, but the school did it. And so they canceled that deal. And so in the foreseeable future, I do not see schools getting into endorsement deals with sports books. But that may change. Like I said, a lot of the restrictive regulations that we had are kind of relaxing, but not to the point where they'll open it up. It's still going to be a little prohibitive.
There's a question right here.
This is kind of off topic, but how do y'all feel about NIL money in college? Do y'all feel like players are just going for more money, or get on the team?
You mean the idea of it overall, or what's happening now?
Idea of it overall.
It's long overdue as the media rights deals just became more and more and more, that the content providers, and that's what they are, right, that they got their fair share of the revenue. I think the problem is that for the last decade plus, as legal experts, including a former president of this institution, Gary Roberts, kept insisting that the courts are going to dictate NCAA policy, and there will be a time when athletes are paid legally. There was a time when the NCAA had a chance to get out in front of that and create a system that would avoid third-party influence and would provide a fair share for the athletes that create all this revenue. And that, for whatever reason, that didn't happen, which is why now,
It's the Wild West.
I had coaches telling me at the Final Four that the asking price was going up dramatically month over month. And we saw yesterday, last week, the quarterback of Tennessee, if that isn't the first holdout, like a contractual holdout in the history of college sports, it was the first high-profile one. Mm-hmm. And so, it's market demand now. So I think the system was long overdue, but the lack of attentiveness to it has created an untenable situation.
So I know you said that like coaches, players, and whatnot shouldn't be betting on sports, period. But let's say the U of I coach played basketball, wanted to bet on Caltech's basketball. Is that still okay, or is it just no coaches betting on sports?
No coaches betting on sports.
Okay.
So they're prohibitive of betting on any sport. A lot of these coaches have friends in the industry. So going back to what you guys talked about, journalism, they have insider information. So they know information that the public doesn't know or Vegas doesn't know, and these betting lines may change based on this information that the public doesn't know. So it's not fair for coaches or administrators to be betting on these games when they have connections all around the country.
The disturbing thing, and I'm not trying to preach doom and gloom, history tells us there will be a scandal. There will be another scandal. It's like the nature of like the big one in Southern California. It's going to happen. And I think the guardrails that are set up because of regulation and conferences and the NCAA that can monitor activity and get a sense of where the irregularities are can help try to identify and prevent situations from going out of control. Mm-hmm. But to me, the key is who are the people in the enterprise that aren't cashing in? Who's part of this but not making money? Student managers. Some of them might be on some kind of scholarship. Some of them might be completely on a volunteer basis. They have access to injury information.
Correct.
All these things that gamblers would want to know. Can they be compromised? That's how scandals happen. If you go back to the college basketball scandals in the 50s, a lot of it was because naive young people who were very talented players were in conversations with gamblers, and the gamblers said, I'm not asking you to do anything to hurt your team, I'm just asking you to win by less. And it was about the point spread. It's inevitable that something is going to happen, and the question is, can the regulation and can the available data identify it before it becomes a full-blown problem that can hurt people?
So a couple of years ago, the University of Alabama's baseball coach got caught, not betting himself, but what he was doing was he was telling his friend injury reports, or he was telling his friend, hey, my best pitcher has eligibility issues, so he's not going to be playing this season. Go put this much money on this game, or go put this much money on this game. So he was giving his friend information. The friend was going and making these bets. The coach got caught, and the coach has been effectively banned from college athletics for the next 10 years. So nobody will touch him. Nobody would hire him. So he lost his job and pretty much his career because of talking to his friend about insider information.
So who, out of curiosity, basically caught on to this? Was it like the sports books?
Sports books. So sports books are have been very helpful to us.
Yeah. So, and you guys might remember last year there was the NBA player Jonte Porter. That was the NBA's first real big scandal in sort of the era of legalized sports betting. And same thing to Alabama coach. These sports books, what they can do, and this is one of the benefits of its legalization. Like, we're not just going to sit here and tell you all the reasons it's bad. One of the reasons that it's nice that it's legal is because it allows them to see and flag any unusual activity. In the case of Jonte Porter, these sports books, I think it might have been DraftKings, but DraftKings was like, hold on, why are there these $80,000 bets on a guy who is on the back of the Raptors bench for his under to hit? it's the things like that where it's like no regular sports fan would ever be making these bets. Something's up. That's what piqued, like, that's what got their attention. And sure enough, that's what led them to finding out, oh, he was in on this, and he's going to be sentenced next month, and he's facing prison time for being in on this whole scheme. And the Alabama coach does the same thing. A couple of years ago, the quarterback at Iowa State,
Yes.
he was caught betting, and it was a whole thing too. Like his dad had opened up the account and given the login credentials to his son, and his son has placed probably close to $3,000 worth of wagers on multiple college sports, including Iowa State football. But it was flagged because the sportsbook noticed that there was a irregular amount of betting activity happening on the campus, like specifically sort of the athletic areas of campus at Iowa State, and I think the University of Iowa as well. So they're able to see, why is there all this activity coming from these specific locations? It's going on these things, so it's like, okay, that's weird. That's coming from Iowa State athletic on Iowa State football, huh? And then sure enough, they found him. He lost his eligibility. He had to go to community college. It's the things like that there are those things in place that make it so that we catch these suspicious activities, whether it's college athletes, coaches, professional athletes that are betting on their sports, that we catch them and we hopefully can avoid any huge scandals. But kind of what you were saying, I think it's ultimately it is going to be inevitable.
Sorry to backtrack, but what are your thoughts on the Tennessee quarterback Nico, holding out? Like, do you think it'll be a pattern, or will the NCAA do something to stop it? And what are your thoughts on smaller sportsbooks being able to offer lines on where players are going to transfer in the transfer portal?
So, real quick, the second part, I don't think that happens, unless you're referring to something I'm not aware of. But you can go on the first part.
For the second part, I mean, I've seen on the internet there's a lot of lines about where Nico Leo's going to go.
It's probably offshore, unregulated. So the regulated ones, the action has to be on a field of some sort or a court of some sort. So that might be what you're referring to. I don't know. Yeah.
So I can touch on Nico on the holdouts a little bit. Players have rights. It's their right to hold out if they want to. They don't have to play. They don't have to participate. But then the coach also has the right to remove you from the team. So it's back and forth. I think what's important for a lot of these college athletes, especially at that high level, like Nico is playing at, is they have to be in contact with advisors and agents who can advise them correctly on the negotiation part. So there's a little barrier between the administrators and the players, so there doesn't come out bad tensions like it did with Nico.
And I don't think there'll be a pattern, but I don't think it'll be the last time you'll see that.
Correct.
Do you guys think it's an issue for professional athletes to bet on other sports, like an NBA player to bet on a baseball game or a hockey player to bet on a football game?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, on the surface, no, but kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where a lot of these athletes, they're connected. They have friends. Sometimes those friends are also professional athletes in other sports. Perhaps they get sort of inside information from their buddy. You know, a baseball player has a friend in the NBA. He's like, oh, hey, by the way, yeah, I'm not feeling good today. They might want to take my under. I don't know how anyone is going to know that happened, that conversation took place, and that there's some shady activity that led to that bet happening. So that's where it gets really murky for me.
I mean, I would guess that every major league clubhouse probably has an NCAA men's tournament pool. Mm-hmm. I mean, just for fun. And so, you know, on that kind of level, I mean, it's like any other group of people interested in the tournament. I mean, it would seem to be pretty harmless.
Yeah, so admittedly, I'm not entirely familiar with how like sports betting apps work exactly, but obviously the example with the Iowa State quarterback placing the bets on team premises, I think it was the same for Jason Williams of Detroit. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anybody in the
Well, they need the geolocation in place because betting is on a state-by-state basis.
Correct.
We don't have a blanket legalization where all 50 states. If we did, then it's like, okay, whatever. But it's the rules in Illinois are different than the rules in Missouri for sports betting. So they need to be able to know that. And as a result, in order to place any bet, you need to allow these apps to track your location. Phones, you have apps already that get access to your location. So it's a necessary thing. Personally, it doesn't really bother me. I think that it's how else are you going to do it, right? If everyone has the ability to just place a bet from their phone, it's really sort of the only way, unless people want to go back to the days where you have to go drive all the way to the brick and mortar sports book to place a bet. I don't think people want to do that. So that's really what it is. It's more of just a convenience thing, but it's also like the only necessary way to actually make sure that the activity is happening in that state, as opposed to a state where it shouldn't be allowed to happen.
And there's a lot of irregularities that pop up. There's something called arbitraging where people play multiple books off. So, different books are able to see irregularities and kind of identify. So that is one of the positive things about being regulated and legal in the states.
While we're on that subject, Igli, probably you, could you explain these integrity monitoring companies and what they do and how helpful that is for your job as a compliance officer?
So, yeah, very helpful. The MVC, for example, the MVC is partnered with U.S. Integrity, and what the MVC has contracted them to do is for them to look at all the MVC games and to see if there's any abnormalities during these games, right? Is there a high spike in one of these games? That's Eastern Michigan's basketball. A couple of their student athletes got caught betting on their own team. One of the games that was caught was because of one of the games they played against an MVC school. I believe Murray State or Drake. I forgot the school. But that's how a lot of times these student athletes or coaches get caught. It's because of these integrity companies that look at data and look at betting activity, how much, for example, Bradley basketball, if they look at 15 Bradley basketball games and they see one has a lot of bets in one of those games, that's a red flag to them. They look at that and they're like, why is this, right? On average, this is how much bets are being placed on Bradley basketball. On average, this is how much money is being bet on Bradley basketball. Why is this game so high? So that's what our integrity monitoring is.
So what's the next step for you in that scenario? There's an irregularity. What do you do with that?
So if somebody told me there's some type of irregularity, we contact the NCAA. That's straight to the NCAA, and the NCAA then starts dealing with it, starts investigating. They start looking at these games. They start looking at the players in these games. They start looking at the coaches, all different parties of these games. They start looking at everybody to see why is this game a little different than the rest of the games.
So you don't do the investigation?
I do not. No,
Yeah.
no, me personally, no.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions? Yeah. We'll come to you next. Okay. Go ahead.
I know with TV advertising, there's limitations. Obviously, you can't advertise smoking. You're limited on hard alcohol advertising. Do you think we reach a point where the betting gets to that point where you can't advertise, use this code, you get $15 off, you get $50 free cut?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in Canada, and it happens in Canada. There's some things you cannot, inducements and so forth, and I do think the advertising in the U.S. will change to reflect that.
You can't escape it, right? I mean, you can't turn on a game and escape it.
Yeah, I was going to say overseas in the UK, they have right now, and sports betting has been legalized there a lot longer than it's been here. And they have something that's called a whistle-to-whistle rule, where from the start of the game all the way to the end of the game, there's no advertising for gambling, sports betting. It probably wouldn't be a bad idea here, realistic. Like we see, obviously, pre-game, it's kind of tough to escape, but I could see a scenario where once, a football game starts, from the opening kickoff all the way to the final whistle, we don't see any ads in the commercial breaks for, oh, place a live bet on so-and-so to score the next touchdown, or no mention of it at halftime or whatever. I don't know if it'll be immediately, but yeah, I think that type of limit would be a good idea, personally.
You're seeing in some countries with gambling that they're limiting or not allowing influencers to promote gambling operators and so forth. So, you know, you never know what could happen here as well.
These are great questions. Go ahead. Okay.
I got a question. What's the last bet you guys made? I was thinking that too.
Oh, I could tell you. It was, well, I mean, I could almost tell you for the last 40 years. Seriously, that's how few there have been. But the last bet I lost a candy bar on the Fordham Stony Brook football game last fall. And I'm still bitter to this day that I didn't have a chance to win a candy bar. So yeah, so that's mine.
Igli, before you answer this question, I should tell you this session's being recorded.
So I've worked in college athletics for 4 years, so I haven't made any sports gambling. But the last time I participated in gambling was fantasy football when I was in college.
I did a Nolan Arenado to hit a home run on opening day. So.
This opening day?
Yes.
Okay.
Did he hit it?
He did hit it.
Okay.
Yes, thank you all, thank you. No, appreciate it, thank you.
And I once lost a dozen roses on the Rose Bowl, and Charles White just killed me. It's maybe the only time I've ever rooted for Ohio State in my entire life, you know, and you can record that. And you know, they had it, and until Charles White and his friends up front said, "Not so fast, my friend."
He said that a lot.
But you know, the one thing about my gambling education, when in my previous life as a reporter, I would be sent to Las Vegas from time to time to cover a fight that wasn't big enough that our main boxing guy would go, but it was significant enough that they needed to send somebody. And the first time I was there, I remember just going for a walk on the Strip and seeing all these big buildings, and I just started to think, like, I didn't go to business school, but I just have a feeling that the business model for building all these great big buildings was not so that they had a way to give people like me big bags of money. It's like, you know, the house is going to win a lot, which means that schlubs like me are going to lose a lot. So, I mean, maybe that's a self-protective thing, because most journalists have, you know, that flaw in their DNA to be obsessive compulsive. Maybe that's part of it. But I mean, I don't need that juice to be interested in a game. And I think that's what the industry is feeding on, and especially with younger people, that they're trying to create this illusion that if you're watching the Cubs play the Cardinals, like, you have to have a financial stake in it to care. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that for in the future there'll be more emphasis on integrity in the game? Because, you know, a lot of the people that are professionals now, they grew up with sports betting being illegal. But as you guys see, you know, like the Jameson Williams game is only 22, 23 years old. You know, sports betting is legal for him now, so he's probably grown up with betting being illegal. And you guys think there'll be more emphasis in the future on the integrity of it, maybe, you know, high school, college, start putting it into classes for them?
Well, I mean, I hope there's more of an emphasis on the cautionary tales.
Yes.
and making sure people realize what the potential stakes are if they're in position to be an athlete or an employee that by definition you're saying, I won't do this, despite the fact that, I mean, it gets back to the Gamblers Anonymous member in Denver talking about the impact of, you know, everybody all around you being a part of this. I mean, I think there's going to be a need to emphasize the integrity piece of it.
I got a question. So y'all got any advice on gambling? Because, you know, I ain't got none of my bets hit. I keep losing all my money. I lost fights. I lost money in the Super Bowl. I lost money in the Final Four. I'm losing all my bread. I don't know what to do no more.
Are you looking for tips?
I'm 0 for 10. I'm 0 for 10.
Give it up.
Yeah.
I do my research and I still sell.
I would say perhaps another form of entertainment
Yeah.
might be in your future. But see, part of the danger of it, you know, and I've had friends that think this way. If this was years ago, the Minnesota Twins had lost 9 in a row, and a friend of mine went to a payphone, and it was clear that he was getting down a bet. I mean, I'm just waiting to use the payphone, and he said they're not going to lose 10 in a row. So I mean, that's part of what you should be aware of. I mean, that's the gambler's mentality. If you lose 10 bets in a row, well, that's why Monday Night Football became as big as it is. That's why Maction football is a magnet, because people are trying to catch up to their losses, and it just becomes worse.
I lost 10 in a row. I can't believe
You know,
I think the integrity of the game has already been affected because, like, now, like, journalism, it's more focused on betting. It's like, if this player's injured now, go place your bet, this. Players or fans are getting mad, not because it's the game, but because now it's affecting their money.
That's a good
So,
question.
like, how do you think it has already affected the integrity?
I mean, the purity of the sport.
You know, the integrity of the game, I'm not sure. I do know professional players, it does affect them. Like someone was talking about earlier, you know, proposition bets are very popular, and people go to games, and if they don't get the 7th point or the 12th rebound, you know, they're taking an airful like they didn't take before. There's definitely, that's definitely happening. It's not good. So hopefully integrity of the game or integrity of the sports books, you know, it's still a very green industry. I mean, 2018 is when it launched in a lot of these states. You know, 3 of the largest states in the U.S. aren't even legal yet: Florida, Texas, and California. And we'll see what happens there. But
I mean, the toothpaste is not going back in the tube, if that's part of the question. And so, I mean, it's a really good question, because as all of this evolves, do people start looking at the competition differently if there is a growing feeling somehow that the integrity of the whole enterprise has been threatened? Or were we just living in a dream world when we weren't thinking about that?
Yeah, because I feel like now the fans are not really there for the game; they're just there for their money. So how does that? Does the organizations even care about that? Because now it's like, oh, people are only here because we want this to hit. We're only watching because we want this to hit. How does that affect, like, their fans? Their players?
I don't think organizations care as long as there's butts in the seats. So I don't know if they care so much. Maybe some do, maybe some don't.
I don't think they've even thought about it. I think, like Adam said, if there's people in the stands, if there's people watching these games, it's not a thought of theirs.
Now, long term, I'm interested to see what happens, because a big reason why a lot of us here became sports fans is because, like, our parents were sports fans. Like, my dad was a big Yankees fan, right? Got me into baseball. And that is like having that sort of relationship with sports has always been the case. However, now, like, you have people who are getting into sports not just because they love the game, they just love, you know, seeing their favorite players, watching their favorite teams. It's because they're betting on it. It's fine, like, for the teams, it's like, okay, whatever, people are paying to watch, great. But, like, if there's a kid and their parents don't really have, like, that same love of sports, and in fact, maybe their relationship with sports is just like, oh, this makes my dad really upset because he just is betting on them and he gets angry and they lose, and it's like, I'm not going to grow up and have that same connection and that same passion for sports. So like, I'm curious to know what the answer to your question is 15 years from now, when like we've seen more and more people like betting on sports, and then like the next generation, how they then view sports. Do they view it also through the prism of like, oh, this is just something to bet on. This is purely a transactional relationship I have, and not a relationship that like I had and everyone else my age, and I'm sure everyone up here has, where it's, we grew up with it because we loved it. We love watching sports. We just love watching those moments unfold and not viewing it through the prism of betting.
And the key word is transactional. I mean, my concern is somebody who's loved the college game going way back, as the whole enterprise becomes more and more transactional, and we get away from the model that drew many of us to it, that people are playing for their schools or their communities, does that lead, eventually, does that lead people to say, it's all professional basketball. The NBA version is a higher skill level, and we know from year to year who's going to be playing for who, because there's collective bargaining and there are contracts. This other thing, we don't know from year to year who's going to be playing for who, and they're holding out. And they're playing because whoever gives them the most money. These people are more skilled. I would rather watch Bulls Pacers than Illinois IU. And I think that's a real danger long term, and the gambling piece is part of that. NIL is a part of it. And I think it's going to take some very careful managing to preserve the feel that has made college sports what it has been for more than a century.
We are nearing the end of the hour, so let's wrap up by asking each of you to tell this audience, what is the one takeaway? If there's something you want them to know about the current state of sports and wagering, what would that be? And Malcolm, let's start with you.
To protect yourself.
Yes.
The more it becomes legal, if managed correctly, it can be a fun thing to do. It's something to talk about with your friends, maybe bragging rights, but please be mindful of the potential hazards and please protect yourself.
I would agree with everything Malcolm said. Personal experience, my son's a freshman in high school, and him and his friends play fantasy football. Fantasy football is very close to making prop bets, and some of his friends are. So it's already hitting me personally, and I work in the business, and I try to explain to him that you have to protect yourself, and there are protections on most apps that you can limit yourself, but it's a form of entertainment, and you shouldn't go in thinking you're going to win $1 million. You should try to, if for entertainment, don't bet more than you can lose, and try to keep it small. So I'm having these conversations with my son, who's a freshman in high school. It's scaring me a little bit that he's so young and already knows this, so I'm wondering what's going to happen. But I would say, like Malcolm said, just make sure you protect yourself and know your limits.
Yes, everything.
You already know. You found out.
Yeah. So yes,
you deleted.
Yes, and yes to everything that they were saying on a specific level. And this is if you actually are betting, if you do it recreationally, if you know your limits, follow all the best guidelines and practices, and you just view it as just an activity where you only wager what you can afford to lose, all that. Don't go for the big parlays. It's a bad idea. I saw a stat the other day. It was like over 50. It's like 55% of bettors are placing at least one parlay bet a week, and I think only 5% have never placed a parlay bet. Be one of those 5%. There's a reason that the odds are astronomical. It's because the chances of it hitting are low. You're not going to get a career by just hitting parlay bet after parlay bet, and you're going to be down very quickly before you know it. So that's a little bit of advice. If you do decide your takeaway, I think I still do want to gamble. That's my tip for you. So.
Thanks, Tim. Igli?
So I got 2 tips, one for regular students, one for student athletes. For regular students, be careful. Like they all said, know your limit, and do not be afraid to ask for help if you're feeling like this is something that's becoming addictive to you. And then for student athletes, do not participate in this sports gambling. It's not worth it. The level of punishments can be very, very severe. So it's just not worth it. So for all the student athletes in here, do not gamble.
Thank you all. Everybody, please thank the panelists.
Okay. You got another question? You got another question?
The next session will be Steiner School success stories, some of our current students and some of our graduates and some of the successes they've had. It will start at 10:30 sharp. Thank you.